Rescued Bobcat Kitten had no hope until a house cat became his foster mom. A bright red streak cut violently across the white snow near the tree line. Blood, fresh blood, still vivid against the powder. Jebediah Stone stopped, his eyes locking onto the disturbing pattern leading toward the old oak tree. He followed the trail, and there, partially hidden by low branches, he found him, a tiny bobcat kitten, dragging himself forward, one painful inch at a time. His back legs hung limp and useless, leaving two deep drag marks behind him, and around his neck sat a bright orange collar marked with the number 2. The kitten looked up not with a plea for mercy, but with the defiant eyes of a fighter refusing to surrender. Jeb immediately stripped off his coat to wrap the shivering animal, breaking the frozen silence of the morning. Only moments before, the Blue Ridge Mountains had been peaceful, the air bitter and still after last night's blizzard. Jebediah Stone, 72 years old, had stepped out of his log cabin simply to walk the perimeter of his property like every other morning, never guessing that the storm had left behind a tragedy waiting to be found. The kitten had escaped from somewhere, or maybe he had been dumped, thrown away like trash. Jeb did not speak. He picked him up, coat and all, and carried him back to the cabin. Inside the cabin, Jeb moved with the lethal efficiency of a two-tour combat medic. He swept his oak table clear, rigged a heavy military flashlight for a spotlight, and dropped his old service scalpel into boiling water. His hands remained as steady as they were 40 years ago when he was treating wounded Marines. "You're going to have to tough this out like a soldier," he murmured to the bobcat. The diagnosis was grim, a bruised right leg and a left leg shattered in 2 places, the bone completely misaligned. Knowing a crooked heel meant a death sentence in the wild, Jeb set the bone with a fast, decisive jerk. The kitten let out a soul-tearing scream before passing out from the sheer force of the shock, while the animal was unconscious. Jeb fashioned a splint from kindling and patted it with cloth, binding it with surgical precision. He then spent several grueling minutes prying off a tight orange plastic collar that had been on so long it had worn a raw, deep groove into the kitten's neck. As sweat soaked his shirt, Jeb looked at the tiny patient. The surgery was over, but the war against infection and shock was just beginning. A cream-colored cat jumped onto the table. This was Hattie, an American short-hair who had belonged to Jeb's late wife, Nora, when Nora died 3 years ago from cancer. Hattie had stayed with Jeb. The two of them had been keeping each other company ever since, though neither one of them was particularly good company. Just 2 lonely creatures sharing a house. Now Hattie approached the unconscious bobcat kitten carefully. She stretched her neck out. She sniffed him thoroughly, her pink nose working. She touched his fur with one paw, very gently. Then she looked up at Jeb as if asking a question. "Yeah, he's staying," Jeb said, "at least until we see if he makes it." The first 48 hours would tell the story. Jeb knew this from hard experience. The body either rallied or it did not. There was not much you could do except wait and watch. He pulled his armchair close to the table. He settled into it with a blanket. He set his watch alarm for every 2 hours. Each time it beeped, he woke up and checked the kitten. Breathing, temperature, pulse. He kept notes on a pad of paper, tracking everything. When Jeb slept, Hattie took over the watch without being asked. She pressed her small body against the bobcat's side. Her fur was warm. Her body heat helped keep the patient from getting colder. When the kitten whimpered and twitched in fever dreams, Hattie started licking his forehead, slow, rhythmic strokes with her rough tongue, the same motion a mother cat would use to comfort a frightened baby. At 3 in the morning, Jeb woke up from one of his 2-hour naps. He saw this scene by the dying orange light from the fireplace. A house cat, barely 10 pounds, caring for a wild predator, giving comfort across species. It was something to see. A small smile crossed Jeb's weathered face. "Good work, Private Hattie," he whispered. The crisis lasted 3 days. 3 days when the kitten could have gone either way. His temperature spiked on the second night, climbing to dangerous levels. Jeb spent 4 hours sponging him down with cool water, Fighting the fever 1 degree at a time. By dawn, the fever broke. The kitten's temperature came back on to normal range. On the third day, the Bobcat kitten opened his eyes, really opened them, alert and aware. He lifted his head. He looked around the cabin, taking everything in. Then his eyes found Jeb sitting in the armchair. Jeb picked up the orange collar from the table where it had been sitting for 3 days. He looked at the number 2 printed on it. Then he looked at the amber eyes watching him from the nest of blankets on the table. "I'm going to call you Deuce," Jeb said. "In the army, in a deck of cards. The 2 is sometimes called the deuce. It's the lowest card in the whole deck. But sometimes that deuce is the most important card that can save the whole game. And to me, the word deuce means something else too. It means second chance. You, Seren, kid, against all the odds, you got your second chance at life." The kitten, Deuce, blinked slowly. Maybe he understood. Maybe he did not. But the name stuck. Recovery became a daily routine. Jeb ran it like a military operation. He established a schedule and he stuck to it. Food was the first obstacle. Deuce rejected dry kibble entirely. His instincts as a wild predator demanding raw protein. Jeb understood. The kitten's biology required the diet his mother would have provided in the wild. Despite the biting cold, Jeb spent 2 hours at the creek until he landed 3 trout. Back at the cabin, he cleaned the fish with surgical precision, meticulously removing every bone to prevent choking. He hand-fed the meat to Deuce, who ate ravenously. "Eat up, Private Deuce," Jeb murmured as the kitten's rough tongue rasped against his skin. "You can't fight if you don't fuel the engine." Weeks passed, and Deuce's bone began to knit. However, Jeb noticed atrophy, the wasting of muscle from disuse, a condition he had treated often in wounded soldiers. To combat permanent weakness, Jeb began daily physical therapy, supporting the kitten's weight on the grass. "Pain means you're healing," he encouraged, recording every second of progress in his notebook. After 2 months, the unsteady Deuce began exploring the cabin. He discovered a burgundy cardigan in a box, Nora's favorite sweater, which Jeb had kept to preserve her scent. Deuce dragged the wool to his bed and curled into it. Hattie, sensing the moment, joined him, grooming the bobcat with patient strokes, watching them. Jeb's chest tightened. He looked at his wife's wedding photo on the mantel. "You sent him to us, Nora," he whispered, realizing that in saving the kitten, he and Hattie were finally being saved from their own crushing loneliness. January came. The coldest part of winter settled over the mountains. Some mornings the temperature did not get above 0 degrees. The wind came down from the high peaks and cut through everything. Jeb's left knee started acting up badly. He had injured it in Vietnam during his second tour. Shrapnel from a mine. The army doctors had patched it up well enough, but the damage was permanent. Cold weather always made it worse. Some nights the pain was so bad he could not sleep at all. Just a deep, constant throbbing that went all the way down to the bone. One of those nights, Jeb was lying in bed, trying to find a position that hurt less. Nothing worked. He had taken aspirin. He had tried a heating pad. Nothing helped. Deuce, who normally slept in his own bed by the fireplace, did something he had never done before. He jumped up onto Jeb's bed. The mattress shifted under his weight. He had gotten big. Not full grown yet, but already 20 pounds. Maybe more. Deuce walked carefully across the blankets. Then he lay down, slowly and deliberately, directly on top of Jeb's bad knee. His body was warm. His thick winter fur was soft. His high body temperature, a couple degrees hotter than a human, worked better than any heating pad Jeb had ever owned. The pain started to ease almost immediately. Not gone, but better, manageable. Jeb's hand came to rest on Deuce's back. He could feel the animal breathing, slow and steady. "Thank you, Doc Deuce," Jeb said into the dark room. "You're pretty good at this medicine thing." The cabin became full of small moments like this. Good moments. Moments that made the loneliness less. One afternoon, Hattie decided to teach Deuce how to hunt like a cat. She went outside through the cat door Jeb had installed years ago. She came back 20 minutes later with a field mouse in her mouth, still alive. She dropped it in the middle of the living room floor right in front of Deuce. Then she stepped back and sat down, watching him expectantly. Deuce stared at the mouse. The mouse stared back, frozen in terror. Deuce crouched down low. His rear end started wiggling back and forth, the way cats do before they pounce. His eyes got very focused. Then he jumped. He missed the mouse completely. His paws hit nothing but floor. His momentum carried him forward, and he rolled sideways, tangling himself in his own legs. He ended up on his back, all four paws in the air. The mouse ran under the couch and escaped. Jeb was sitting in his reading chair watching all of this. He started laughing. He laughed hard, the kind of deep belly laugh he had not had since before Nora got sick, the kind that made his sides hurt. Hattie looked at him like he was crazy. Deuce got up and shook himself off, looking embarrassed if a cat could look embarrassed. Most afternoons, the three of them fell into a routine. Jeb would sit in his chair by the fireplace and read his Western novels. He liked Louis L'Amour and Zane Grey, the old ones he had read as a young man. Hattie would jump into his lap and curl up there, purring. Deuce would stretch out at his feet on the rug, sometimes so close that Jeb's boots touched his fur. Sometimes all three of them fell asleep at the same time. Jeb would wake up an hour later with his book fallen to the floor, Hattie still purring in his lap, Deuce still sleeping at his feet. Outside, snow would be falling past the windows. Inside, the fire would be burning low. Those were good hours, peaceful hours. They were a strange family, an old Marine, a house cat, and a wild bobcat. But they were a family. Winter ended slowly. March came. Then April, the snow melted except in the deepest shadows. The creek ran high with meltwater. Green things started pushing up through the dead leaves. Deuce grew fast, faster than Jeb had expected. By the end of April, Deuce was twice the size of Hattie, maybe even more. His muscles had filled out. His coat was thick and healthy. The injured leg had healed completely. He ran and jumped without any limp at all. But he still had the habits from when he was small. He still pushed his big head against Hattie's cream-colored belly when he wanted to sleep. And Hattie still groomed him patiently, licking his oversized head with the same care she had shown when he was a tiny kitten, barely clinging to life. She would spend 20 minutes at a time cleaning his ears, his face, his neck. It was a powerful thing to see. Motherhood with no boundaries. Love that did not care about species or soil or what was supposed to be natural. But Jeb started to notice other things too. Changes. Deuce spent more and more time sitting by the front window. He would sit there for hours, completely still, staring out at the forest, the old-growth Blue Ridge forest that started just past Jeb's property line, trees that had been standing for 200 years, deep shadows, wild country. Deuce's posture when he sat there was different. His ears were forward, his whole body was focused outward. Yearning, that was the word for it, longing for something he could not name but felt in his bones. Jeb watched that silhouette in the window and understood a hard truth that he had been avoiding. "This house is warm, Deuce," Jeb said quietly, standing behind him. "It's safe, you get fed every day. You have a soft place to sleep, but it's still a cage if your heart belongs somewhere else. And I won't be your jailer. I won't be the man who clips your wings because I'm too selfish to let you fly." One evening in late April, after dinner, Jeb turned on his old television set. The picture was fuzzy and the colors were all washed out, but he could see well enough. He did not watch much television, just the news sometimes, to keep up with the world. The local news was on. The anchor, a young woman with too much makeup, was talking about a police raid. "In a developing story tonight, authorities have shut down an illegal wildlife captivity operation in our area," she said. Video footage showed police cars and animal control trucks at a rundown compound surrounded by chain-link fence. The facility, located at Shadow Creek, was keeping wild animals in inhumane conditions. Officers rescued a female bobcat and 2 cubs from the property today. All 3 animals were wearing numbered collars and show signs of serious abuse and malnutrition. The camera switched to show a cage sitting in the back of an animal control truck. Inside the cage, a female bobcat was pacing back and forth. Back and forth. She was calling out, a desperate sound, over and over, the kind of sound a mother makes when her child is missing. The anchor continued talking. Wildlife officials from the Blue Ridge Sanctuary say the mother bobcat is still searching for a third cub. The missing kitten, designated as number 2 on the facility's records, has not been located, but rescuers have not given up hope. They are asking anyone with information to contact the sanctuary immediately. The piece of bread Jeb had been eating fell from his hand. It hit the floor, but he did not notice. He was staring at the television screen, his whole body gone still, slowly, like a man in a dream. He turned his head to look at the orange collar hanging on a nail by the front door, the collar he had removed from a dying kitten's neck 4 months ago. Number 2, he looked at Deuce, sleeping peacefully by the fireplace. Then he looked back at the television. The camera had zoomed in on a photograph, a profile shot of one of the missing cubs. There was a distinctive white marking on the cub's left ear, in irregular shape, like a comma. Jeb looked at Deuce's left ear. The same marking. Exactly the same. "You have a family," Jeb said. His voice was barely a whisper. "You have a mother, brothers. They've been waiting for you this whole time. All these months." Another thought hit him then, cold and sharp as a knife blade between the ribs. The blood trail on that first morning, back in December. Deuce had been dragging himself somewhere specific, somewhere he needed to get to. He had not been looking for help from humans. He had been trying to get home, back to his mother, back to his family. "You saved yourself before I ever found you," Jeb said. "You escaped from that place. You were fighting to get back to her. You almost made it too. You got all the way to my property line before you collapsed. You were trying to get home, not trying to be somebody's pet." Jeb turned off the television. The cabin went dark except for the orange glow from the fireplace. He sat in his chair without moving for a long time. An hour, maybe more. He lost track. Temptation rose up in him like floodwater, like something that could drown you if you let it. The temptation to do nothing, to pretend he had never seen the news, to keep Deuce here in this warm cabin where he was safe and fed and cared for. If he gave Deuce back, he would be alone again. Just him and Hattie. The cabin would feel empty. Hattie would be heartbroken. She loved Deuce. That much was obvious. And what if the people at the sanctuary did not take care of Deuce properly? What if Deuce got sick there? What if they did not understand that he liked his fish filleted carefully, bones removed? What if they did not know that he needed to sleep on Nora's burgundy sweater? What if they did not give him physical therapy for his leg? A dozen reasons presented themselves, one after another. Each one sounded reasonable. Each one gave him permission to keep Deuce, to do nothing, to stay silent. Then Hattie walked across the room. She pressed her small, cream-colored body against Deuce's spotted side. She started grooming his head, licking his ears with long strokes of her tongue. And Jeb remembered the female bobcat on the television screen, pacing, calling, looking for her lost baby. Still hoping after all these months. He spoke out loud to the empty room. His voice was rough. "A combat medic has 2 parts. First, you stabilize the patient in the field. You stop the bleeding. You splint the broken bones. You do what you can with what you have. But that's only part 1. Part 2 is just as important. You transfer the patient to a hospital for specialized care. You get them to people who can do more than you can do. If you keep them in the field too long, if you hold on to them because you're afraid of letting go, you're not helping them anymore. You're preventing them from getting what they really need. You're preventing full recovery." He had done part 1. He had stabilized Deuce, saved his life, healed his broken leg. But now it was time for part 2, time to transfer the patient to where he really belonged. The next morning, after he had fed Hattie and Deuce their breakfast, after he had drunk his coffee, Jeb picked up the telephone. His hand shook a little as he dialed, but his voice was steady when a woman answered. "Blue Ridge Wildlife Sanctuary. This is Dr. Sarah Hayes. How can I help you?" "This is Jebediah Stone," Jeb said. "I live up on the North Ridge. I've been watching the news. I think I have something that belongs to you. I think I have the piece of the Bobcat family you people are looking for." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Dr. Hayes said, "Can you describe what you have?" "Mr. Stone, male Bobcat Kitten, about 6 months old now, spotted coat, white marking on his left ear shaped like a comma. I found him back in December with a broken leg and an orange collar around his neck. The collar had the number 2 on it. I've been rehabilitating him since then." Another pause. Then Dr. Hayes' voice came back, filled with emotion. "Mr. Stone, can we come see you today if possible?" "Yes, ma'am," Jeb said. "Today would be fine." He gave her directions to the cabin. Then he hung up the phone. Before the rescue team arrived, Jeb had work to do, important work. He sat down at his kitchen table with a pen and a notebook. He opened to a clean page and started writing. He wrote down everything he knew about Deuce, what Deuce ate every single day, how much, what time he ate, how he liked his fish prepared, with all the bones removed, what his bathroom schedule was like, regular as clockwork, how the broken leg had healed, week by week, the setbacks and the progress, how Deuce slept, where he liked to sleep, the fact that he needed Nora's burgundy sweater, the fact that he liked to lie on top of people's legs when the weather was cold because it seemed to comfort him. Jeb wrote down everything. He filled 6 pages with small, careful handwriting. He wrote it all with the same precision he had once used writing after action reports in the Marines. Every detail mattered. Every piece of information could be important. This was his final act of protection for Deuce. He wanted to make sure these people understood him, really understood him, the way Jeb had come to understand him over 4 months of living together. He wanted Deuce to be known, not just kept. That night, Jeb made a farewell dinner. He went to his freezer and took out the venison he had been saving for next winter. A whole backstrap, the best cut of meat from a deer he had shot last fall. He had been saving it for a special occasion. This was a special occasion. He grilled the venison carefully over the fire in his fireplace. The old way, on a metal grate. He cooked it until it was perfect, medium rare, still pink in the middle. Then he cut it into 3 portions, one for him, one for Hattie, one for Deuce. They gathered around the fireplace one last time, the 3 of them together. A family. Strange as it was, no crying, no dramatics. Jeb would not allow that. Just quiet respect, the way soldiers said goodbye to each other. When Deuce finished eating, Jeb reached out and rubbed the spot between his ears, the spot Deuce liked best. "You ship out tomorrow, understand?" Jeb said. "You're going back to your original unit. Your real family. I expect you to make me proud out there. Don't embarrass me." Deuce looked at him with those amber eyes. Then he pushed his head harder against Jeb's hand, asking for more scratching. The next morning, right on time, the rescue team's white truck came up the dirt road to the cabin. Jeb heard it from inside, the diesel engine, tires crunching on gravel. He did not wait for them to knock. He opened the door and walked out. He had Deuce in a heavy canvas carrier, the kind made for large dogs. Hattie was in her own smaller carrier. Jeb carried both of them. 2 people got out of the truck. Dr. Sarah Hayes, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and work boots, and a younger man, probably her assistant, wearing the same blue sanctuary uniform. "Mr. Stone," Dr. Hayes said, extending her hand. "That's right," Jeb said, shaking her hand. "And this is Deuce." Dr. Hayes looked into the carrier. Her eyes went wide. "It's really him," she said softly, "after all this time." "He's healthy now," Jeb said. "I've written down everything you need to know. 6 pages, instructions, medical history, behavioral information. You'll want to read all of it." "Of course," Dr. Hayes said. "Mr. Stone, what you've done here is remarkable. You saved his life." "Just did what needed doing," Jeb said. "Now I need to do one more thing. I'm coming with you to the sanctuary, me and Hattie both. We need to see him settled. We need to make sure he gets there safely." Dr. Hayes looked surprised, but she nodded. "Of course, please. Get in." The drive to the sanctuary took 40 minutes. Jeb sat in the back seat with both carriers. Nobody talked much. Jeb looked out the window at the mountains passing by. This was the right thing. He knew it was the right thing, but knowing something and feeling good about it were 2 different matters entirely. At the sanctuary, they drove around to the back where the large outdoor enclosures were. The Bobcat family had their own enclosure. Dr. Hayes explained, 2 acres, natural habitat, everything they needed. They parked. The assistant took Deuce's carrier. Jeb carried Hattie. They walked to a viewing area with reinforced glass walls. On the other side of the glass, Jeb could see the enclosure, tall grass, rocks, fallen logs, trees. It looked wild. It smelled like the old forest. Dart Hayes and her assistant carried the transport crate into a secured entry area. Through the glass, Jeb watched them open the crate door carefully. Deuce stepped out slowly. His paws touched the ground. Real earth, not cabin floor. He looked uncertain. His head swiveled, taking everything in. Then a sound rang out across the enclosure. A call, wild and urgent and full of desperate hope and relief. 3 bobcats came running through the tall grass, a full-grown female, larger than Deuce, and 2 younger males, about Deuce's size. The cubs wore orange collars marked with the numbers 1 and 3. The mother reached Deuce first. She did not stop. She hit him like a freight train, knocking him sideways. Then she started licking his face frantically. Fast, desperate licks, washing him, washing away every trace of human scent. Wood smoke, cabin smell, domestic life, washing him clean, bringing back the wild smell, making him hers again. She checked every inch of him. Her nose went over his whole body. Her calls were constant, a mixture of relief and joy and something that went beyond any words. The 2 brothers circled around, adding their own calls. The whole family got together again after 4 months. Jeb stood on the human side of the reinforced glass. His old hand was pressed flat against the cold surface. His eyes burned, but he did not look away. Suddenly, Deuce stopped moving. He pulled away from his mother's frantic grooming. He turned around, looking back toward the glass wall. His amber eyes found Jeb through the barrier. Then he looked down. Down at Hattie, sitting calm and dignified in her carrier at Jeb's feet. Deuce blinked, slowly and deliberately. Once, then twice. It was the cat sign, the slow blink that meant trust, love, safety, thank you. Then he turned his back. He ran to his brothers. The 3 young males tumbled together in the grass, playing, fighting, being what they were supposed to be. Wild, free. Their mother watched for a moment, then she lifted her head. She looked toward the glass wall, not at Jeb, at Hattie. Her bright, wild eyes locked onto the small, cream-colored house cat. Hattie looked back, steady and calm and proud. The gaze lasted exactly 3 seconds. 2 mothers from completely different worlds. One who had given birth, one who had given care. No words were needed, no sounds. That look said everything that needed to be said. Gratitude from the birth mother to the foster mother who had kept her baby alive through a terrible winter. Then the moment ended. The mother bobcat turned away. She called to her cubs, and they all disappeared into the tall grass together. Jeb smiled. Tears ran down his wrinkled face, hot against his cold skin. But his chest felt lighter than it had felt in years, maybe since before Nora got sick. Like a weight had been lifted. Like he could breathe all the way down to the bottom of his lungs. Let's go home, Hattie, he said quietly. The following spring, in May, almost a full year after that day, Jeb's phone rang. He answered it. Mr. Stone, this is Dr. Hayes from the sanctuary. I remember you, Dr. Hayes, how are you? I'm well, thank you. I'm calling because we're releasing the Bobcat family back into the wild today. Full release. They've all fully recovered their wild instincts. We've been preparing them for months. Today is the day. I thought you might want to be there, to see it. Jeb was quiet for a moment. Then he said, yes, I would like that very much. He drove to the release site that afternoon. It was on the far side of the mountain range, miles from any human settlement. Deep wilderness, the kind of place where bobcats belonged. Dr. Hayes was waiting for him in the parking area. They're already in the transport enclosure, she said, pointing down the hill. We're just waiting for you, and then we'll open the gate. Jeb walked to the hillside overlook, she indicated. He stood there with the wind moving through his silver hair. Down below, maybe 100 yards away, he could see the large transport enclosure. Inside it, 4 bobcat shapes moved restlessly. Dr. Hayes gave a signal. One of her staff members pulled the gate release. The gate swung open. For a moment, Owen, nothing happened. The four bobcats stayed where they were, uncertain. Then the mother stepped forward. She walked through the open gate, stopped, tested the air with her nose. Then she started running. Her three cubs followed, all four of them running together in perfect formation, beautiful and wild and free. They ran into the deep green forest, shadows moving between trees, then just shadows, then nothing at all. Gone. Home. Jeb stood on that hillside for a long time after they disappeared. The wind dried the tears on his face. His chest hurt. But it was a good hurt. Clean. This was goodbye. Real goodbye. Final goodbye. Deuce was home where he belonged. But something strange started happening at the cabin after that. During the late afternoons, Jeb would sit on his front porch with a cup of tea. Hattie would be on his lap, purring. The sun would be getting low, slanting through the trees. And sometimes, just sometimes, at the very edge of the forest near his property line, he would see movement, a silhouette, quick and graceful. It would pass through the trees, a glimpse of spotted fur, then it would vanish like smoke. Jeb could never be completely certain what it was. Maybe it was Deuce, coming back to check on the place where he had learned to walk again. Maybe it was just Jeb's imagination, his mind creating what his heart wanted to see. Maybe, in the years that followed, it was Deuce's children or even his grandchildren, because bobcats had territories and they passed those territories down through families. The exact truth did not matter much to Jeb. What mattered was this: he was not alone anymore. Not really. This forest, these mountains, they held a part of his soul now, a part that had walked on four legs and had amber eyes and had trusted him. That part would never leave. It was out there, wild and free and alive. One evening in late summer, sitting on that porch with Hattie purring on his lap and the forest whispering in the warm breeze, Jeb spoke out loud. His voice was deep and it carried across the clearing. "I've been thinking about love," he said to the empty air, to the trees, to Nora's memory, to whatever was listening. Real love, the truest kind. It's not about keeping someone close because you need them. It's not about holding on tight because you're afraid of being alone. Real love is about knowing when to open your hand. It's about smiling when you watch them go where they belong. Even when it breaks your heart, because the things we love with our whole heart, the things we truly love, they never really leave us. They don't disappear. They just change shape. They go from something we can touch to something we carry inside. A memory, gentle and permanent and always there. Hattie purred louder, as if agreeing. The wind moved through the pine trees, making them whisper, and Jeb understood. Finally and completely. What Nora had been trying to teach him during all those years of marriage, and especially during her last days when she knew she was dying. True love, Jeb whispered to the silence. Hattie heavy and warm on his knees, the first stars touching the tree line, isn't about holding on tight. It's about opening your hands so they can find their own sky. Deuce isn't gone, old girl. He's just become part of the mountain wind now. And that is enough. The sun set behind the mountains. The sky turned orange, then red, then purple. Stars started to appear. Hattie dozed in Jeb's lap. The forest grew quiet except for the wind. And somewhere out there, in the deep wild places, four bobcats settled down for the night, safe, together, free. Every rescue begins with a heartbeat that refuses to give up. We're grateful you chose to listen to this one. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, a simple like or subscribe means the world to us.